This is the fifth presidential dinner of the series of Vicente Fox. We are so grateful to him for President Fox coming to Fort Worth, Texas, and for bringing presidents from around the world. Let us please give a big hand to Vicente Fox. The dinners have been created in cooperation with the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce, the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Fort Worth Sister Cities. Our honorary hosts are the Honorable Kay Granger and the Honorable Betsy Price. They could not be here tonight, Betsy Price and Kay Granger, but they do send you greetings and have been very, very supportive. I have mentioned this many times, but Vicente Fox had told me, for those of you who had not been to our dinners, that he wanted to take presidents to his presidential library to Mexico. And I thought, my little light bulb turned on. I thought, they'll probably be flying through DFW, Mr. President Fox. How about stopping over here and allowing us to present them to Fort Worth? And he said, well, if you can organize it, okay, Juan, we'll see. He didn't think I'd be able to make it happen. I called Kay Granger, I called our wonderful provost, Donovan, I called Chancellor Boschini, and I called the mayor on a Sunday afternoon, and they all said, yes, Fort Worth and TCU are yours, and about 2 months later, we had the first presidential dinner, and we're so grateful and so excited. We have wonderful sponsors. Of course, in the President's Circle, we have Gateway Global Ministries, Intraceramic, Lala, the Sid Richardson Foundation. In the cabinet member, we have, as I mentioned, TCU. As a diplomat, we have Amway, who just joined us, and we're so grateful with their cooperation. We have Beamy Maynard and Parsons, LLP. We have Jones Day. We have a new university, Northwood University, supporting us. We have Tony Rivero. On the statewide, with the ambassadors, we have American Airlines, the Amon Carter Foundation, Baylor University, BNSF Railway, Alberto Cárdenas, who also was one of the first visionary individuals with regard to this dinner, City Commercial Bank, the Coca-Cola Company, Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, Anthony Finch and Yadira Cepeda. We have Fusion Productions. Everything will be filmed today, and you will be able to see it on the internet. It is done professionally by a filmmaker, a good friend of mine, Todd Sims. General Motors is supporting us, Haynes & Boone, Lockheed Martin Corporation, Prism Hotels and Resorts, Texas Capital Bank, the Texas Credit Union League, TIAA CREF Financial Services, US IT Services, and I want to mention something about US IT. Many exciting things have happened through this dinner that were not planned. For example, you will see the lighting here tonight is by a company called Energio that came from Spain and Mexico to one of the dinners and now has just located their business in Fort Worth. Well, I think that's to applaud. And they set up the lighting here for us tonight. USIT has gone from here down to Guanajuato, and President Fox, correct me, they will be creating how many jobs in the next year? In 5 years, 10,000 jobs. Bravísimo. And we're hoping to do something special at the next dinner with him. We also have, of course, the Worthington Renaissance Fort Worth Hotel. Shella Enterprises has supported us. Janet Kafka is here, and she's the honorary consul of Spain, and she had a wonderful dinner for us last night for the two presidents. As statewide Fort Worth Host Committee, Victor Almeida, Alberto Cárdenas, Irene Chase, José de Jesús Legaspi, Sergio de León, Dick Ensweiler, Sal Espino, Domingo Garcia, Mary Louise Garcia, May Ferguson, John Hernandez, Martha and Whitney Hyder, who have a house in San Miguel de Allende, as you probably know, Mike Isley, Julie John Cox, Joe Ralph Martinez, Steve Murin, our mayor of Cowtown, Rosa Navejar participated in the creation of this. And by the way, if you don't know, we now have a new president of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Azucena Resendiz. Azucena, are you around here? Let's give her a big hand. Trey Newton, Juan Rangel, Rice Tilley Jr., Manuel T. Valadez, Dr. Carlos Vasquez. In the steering committee, we have Leticia Benitez, Irene Chase, Judson Cook, Morgan Costello, Diana Diaz, who brought this morning over 300 students to TCU in buses from schools from around the city, Anthony Finch, Columba Gonzalez, Joni Hodges, Pilar Candia Juarez, Olga Naranjo, Doug Schreiner, Greg Wordle, Yadira Lisette Cepeda. A special thanks to Julie Johncox. Where are you, Julie? Who's also helping the campaign for our mayor, right? I'm not saying who to vote for, but we do love our mayor. Finally, I would like to mention another company that we hope will do something very exciting at the next dinner. That's a company called Logic Nation. They are creating a platform so that we'll be able to see all of these wonderful presidents that have spoken and have a logical conversation going on. I will tell you more about them later. Once again, Fusion Productions is filming. The wine has come donated from California, from the Brassville Winery. And today we will have a translation for President Zapatero by Bryce Manderfield. I especially want to give thanks, and I'm leaving it to the end, to the World Affairs Council. Thank you so much, Jim Falk, for the wonderful work that you do. Would you please address the group for a couple minutes, my friends? Thank you very much.
You haven't aged me that much, Juan. It is wonderful to see again such a wonderful crowd. And what's so special about this is every time that President Fox has given us the honor and the privilege to welcome in Fort Worth a different former president or leader that he has worked with, it's brought in a different group. And then others who have attended prior events have come, so the crowds just keep on growing. You know, let me just take a moment, because we're here tonight to honor two former presidents. But we're also here for a purpose that's an extra purpose, and that is to help contribute to Centro Fox. Now, I had the privilege in June to go to Mexico as guest of President and Mrs. Fox with about 20 of our members. And I know not everyone can do that tomorrow or next month, but I encourage you to do it. And I encourage you at least to go to the Centro's website, because when you do that, you'll really see in a very strong way why each and every one of us should make a commitment to the center. I said a few months ago when I was here that I have the opportunity to hear about a lot of good efforts and projects, and sometimes it's easy to be cynical and skeptical. But when I went there and saw the work that President and Mrs. Fox are doing, it was easy to come back, and now I'm proud to be a contributor and supporter. And so I really encourage you to do that. You know, President Fox, in the last week, there have been 2 articles in the New York Times and the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal about what's been happening in Mexico and how Mexico now is such a key ally and economic partner of the United States and the progress that has been made. Well, you can go back and trace that progress back to the administration of President Fox. So again, let's give a warm hand of welcome to President Fox. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your leadership. There's also paying individuals here who come from Dallas Baptist University, and I would like to recognize them. Thank you so much for coming and sponsoring us here. I didn't mention you a minute ago. Thank you so much. Let me tell you a little bit before President Fox comes up here to officially introduce President Rodriguez Zapatero. This morning, President Zapatero and President Fox spoke at TCU, and we had a provost, how many? About 350, 400 students, más o menos. It was wonderful. High school students come in buses, junior high students. There were wonderful questions. We have had Here at the presidential dinner, we've had President Uribe. I was reading what someone was saying about the different individuals we've had, and someone said they've had a President Uribe on the right. Now you're going to have a President Zapatero on the left. And that's what's wonderful about this, but I will tell you they have something in common. They both love the United States of America. And you will be hearing from President Zapatero. You'll be hearing his heart in a few moments. He will challenge you to think different. This morning, he challenged the students, but not only to think different, he challenged the students to become leaders. And you could see the students with the body language, how they were listening to President Zapatero, all with their bodies moving forward and wanting to get closer to him. And I will never forget when he said, I want to tell you that you can become president. He said, nobody expected me to make it. Nobody thought that I could win. He says, and I won over and over and over. You can become president too. Let me tell you a little bit about his story. José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero graduated in law at the University of León in Spain and began his career as a lecturer in constitutional law at the same university. He became a member of the PSOE in 1979 after hearing Felipe González speak at a political rally. Zapatero became the General Secretary of the Socialist Federation of León and later served on the PSOE Federal Committee. He was one of Spain's youngest MPs ever when he was just 26 years old. He is seen as one of the reasons why, as a party leader, he was always insisting in giving a large percentage of party posts to young politicians, and we witnessed that this morning. And also, by the way, to women, and I hope that he will speak about the percentages of women that he had in his cabinet and how he has worked so much for women's rights. He was re-elected Member of Parliament in 1989, 1993, 1996, and 2000, and was elected General Secretary of the PSOE in July of 2000. In the same year, by the way, and in the same month that Vicente Fox was elected President of Mexico, and they served during the same period, pretty much. His rival, President Zapatero, in the party elections was José Bono. 3 years later, Zapatero was elected Vice President of the Socialist International during the 22nd Congress of the Socialist International in Sao Paulo, Brazil, 2003. On 14th of March 2004, Zapatero led the PSOE party to victory in the Spanish elections, and in April, he was elected president. For the first time ever in democratic Spanish politics, all opposition parties, except for one, all opposition parties, the PP, voted in favor of the winning party's candidate for the presidency of Spain. Let's give him a warm welcome. President Fox, would you please come here and officially introduce him?
Muy buenas noches, buen provecho, bon appetit. Thank you for your presence tonight. And I have the honor to introduce to you our speaker tonight, Presidente José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. Usually behind the figure of a president is a human being. And he is a human being all the way. And maybe that's why in his soul he is a social democrat. And his commitment is with people. His humbleness, his closeness to people, like he did this morning with the students, like he did yesterday at Centro Fox, where he came also to speak to students, to politicians, to the business community there. So we're very proud to be here with him and hopefully bring to all of you messages from this great world of Hispanism, which is led by Spain, of course. The change in Spain was spectacular after the era of Franco. And it's been spectacular, its growth and development. I remember the times when Mexico's and Spain's per capita income were about the same. And we're talking time ago levels of around 3,000 US dollars per capita income. Today, Spain is close to 30,000 US dollars per capita of income. And in Mexico, we are striving, struggling, and we're reaching 10,000. So when you have vision, commitment, when you have associates, like it happened in the case of Spain, by becoming a member of the European Union, and when you have straightforward public policies that have to do with the market, that have to do with freedom, that have to do with democracy, but more so that have to do with the real purpose of politics, which is the people, which is the citizens. So I'm sure that we will have a great night, great experience listening to Presidente Zapatero. He will throw a couple of ideas to provoke, and as always, our interest is that we have a dialogue, that we exchange with him also our thoughts and ideas. Spain is the door of entry of Mexico to the European community. Mexico is the door of entry of Spain into the Latin American world. We're real close partners, as we are in Mexico with the United States and Canada. And hopefully, I really pray that this happens, and happens pretty soon, that United States and the European Union close a deal, close a trade agreement. This will bring the Western world back to the partnering of the two great leading regions in the world, in the Western world, North America and the European Union. And I'm sure a lot of strong driving ideas will come about. Because as Churchill said once, we shall return, and Europe will return to its greatness, to its capacity to create wealth and well-being, to being the leading region in the world in distribution of income. It's a compassionate political strategy that has worked enormously. Per capita income in all of European Union has narrowed significantly. It's an intense and successful distribution of income, which we don't enjoy in our part of the world. We don't enjoy that here in the United States. We don't enjoy that in Latin America. And at the very end, that's the purpose of politics. That's the purpose of democracy. That's the purpose and the dream of our founding fathers here in this great nation. Equal opportunities to all, justice, distribution of income. So now I'm going to ask my friend, Jose Luis, to take the podium. I'll be sitting there listening, same as you will.
Buenas noches y muchas gracias por esta invitación, presidente Fox, al Centro, a la Cámara Hispana de Comercio y a todos ustedes por estar aquí.
Good evening to you all. Good evening to President Fox and to all of you that are accompanying us this evening.
Es la primera vez que he venido a Texas. He venido muchas veces a Estados Unidos. No conocía este estado, no conocía Dallas, no conocía Fort Worth.
This is my very first time here in the state of Texas. I had been to the United States, but my very first time here in the Fort Worth area.
Y la verdad es que merece la pena conocer Texas.
And it is definitely worth it to get to know Texas.
Ya me lo imaginaba.
I kind of sort of imagined it a little bit.
En algún momento Texas fue de España, ¿no?
At some point, Texas actually belonged to Spain.
Y luego llegó México y se la quedó por un rato.
And then Mexico came by and took it for a while.
Y al final ustedes decidieron ser un estado.
And at the end of it all, you guys decided to become a state.
Un tiempo estuvieron solos, luego se unieron a ese gran coloso que son los Estados Unidos.
For a time, you guys were alone until this wonderful thing happened where you became the nation of the United States of America.
Pero he comprobado en estos 2 días que les ha quedado una huella hispana.
But I can give proof these last couple days of being here that we have left our mark of Hispanic upon this place.
Se lo voy a
the
explicar.
state.
Se lo voy a explicar.
I'm going to explain to you
Desde que he llegado a Texas,
that since I got here to Texas,
he visto que ustedes son bastante felices,
I've seen that you are very joyful, happy people.
que están bastante a gusto con la vida que llevan,
And you're very satisfied with the life that you have.
que en general tienen una visión positiva de las cosas.
And generally, you have a very positive view and perspective.
Un tono vitalista, les gusta, disfrutan de la vida.
And you enjoy life.
Y cuando uno de ustedes entraba por aquí y estábamos haciendo unas fotos,
When some
por
of you
aquí
came
sentado.
by before the ceremony, we were taking some pictures.
me dijo, he estado 2 años en España
And he said to me, I've been 2 years in Spain.
y le dije, seguro que lo ha pasado bien, que ha estado bien en España.
So I said, I'm sure you had
Que ha
a
disfrutado.
great, a phenomenal time in Spain, that you've enjoyed your
Hasta
time
aquí.
there. It's right over here.
En un momento, y me dijo, sí, he disfrutado, pero demasiado.
And he said, yes, I've enjoyed it, but way too much.
Bueno, por tanto, también nos dejaba la idea de esa visión positiva de la vida.
So we as well have
Es
been
una
able
visión del
to
hispano.
have this positive view and effect on the people.
Y ustedes la tienen,
And you as well have this.
y son amables,
And you are very kind.
son muy amables,
You are very kind people,
muy cariñosos.
very caring.
Y gracias por ser así.
Thank you for being like this.
Necesitamos que sea así la gente.
We need our nations to be this way.
Es verdad que una de las cosas que me ha llamado la atención
It is true that one of the things that has really called my attention
desde ayer por la tarde hablando con algunos de ustedes
yesterday in the afternoon as I was able to speak to some of you
es que me han recordado, me han dicho que no pagan impuesto de la renta federal en Texas.
is that they've reminded me that you don't pay federal tax here in Texas.
No. Income tax.
State tax. Sorry, state tax.
Y no, pero les aseguro que no pienso que tenga que ver esto con esa sensación de felicidad que ustedes tienen.
But I can assure you this has nothing to do with that sense of joyfulness that each and every one of you have.
No. En todo caso,
Either way,
sé que hay un número muy importante de personas de origen hispano en Texas.
I do know that there are so many and a very high percentage of Hispanics here in Texas.
He leído que cerca de un tercio.
and approximately right around 1/3 of the population.
Y es gente que habla bien de Texas.
And it's people that speak very highly of Texas.
Han encontrado trabajo y
And they've been able to find jobs,
destino a sus vidas, sentido a sus vidas. Para muchos de ellos.
destiny in their lives, and direction in their lives for so many of them.
Estados Unidos tienen una imagen ante el mundo de ser un país que se ha hecho grande, abriéndose a los que vienen de fuera.
The United States has an international image that it has become such a great nation in the eyes of people in the exterior,
De todo el mundo.
around the whole world.
Y yo les reconozco esa gran tarea histórica.
And I want to honor that very, very important duty that this has been.
Y sepan ustedes que ante el mundo son grandes cuando acogen bien a las personas que vienen a trabajar aquí.
I want to let you know that you are great, and especially when you are able to host the great leaders that are in your presence.
Ustedes son la primera potencia del mundo
You are the highest potential in the world.
y todo el mundo está pendiente de ustedes.
Everybody has their eyes on you.
Sus comportamientos,
Your behaviors
influyen en todo el planeta.
are influencing this planet.
Sus valores democráticos,
Your democratic values
bien cuidados, bien preservados,
are very cared for, very preserved,
han hecho y contribuyen a que cada vez haya más democracias en el mundo.
and all of this contributes to be able to have a lot more democratic governments across the earth.
También Europa contribuye a ello.
And as well, Europe is able to contribute.
Hemos hecho un proyecto en pocos años de gran unidad política.
We have been able to begin a project these last years of unity, political unity.
Somos ya 27 países, 450 millones de habitantes.
So we are 27 nations and over 400 million people within this union.
Hemos crecido rápido
We have grown so very rapidly,
y somos un gran pilar de la democracia en el mundo.
and we are a pillar in the democratic world.
Conviene que nos recordemos
So it is convenient to us that we remind ourselves
las dos orillas del Atlántico, del Océano Atlántico.
the two borders of the Atlantic Ocean.
En esas orillas nació la democracia.
On those borders is where democracy was birthed.
En el lado europeo y casi al mismo tiempo aquí en
On
Estados
the
Unidos.
European border, and almost at the same time here in the United States.
En esta orilla del Atlántico nació la revolución industrial.
On this border of the Atlantic was where
Sí, la revolución industrial.
the Industrial Revolution was birthed,
El progreso económico,
the economic progress,
la revolución tecnológica de Internet.
the technological revolution of internet.
Y ahora, después de que hemos hecho ese gran recorrido,
And now after we've done this great advancement,
va a haber nuevos competidores en el mundo global.
there will be new competitors in the global world.
No podemos olvidarlo.
We cannot forget this.
Y es bueno para el mundo
And it is very good for the world
que los países emergentes,
that these emerging nations,
como China y la India,
like China, like India,
que estuvieron 2 siglos prácticamente sin existir
who were basically 2 generations that didn't exist
en el mundo económico,
in the economic world,
han vuelto con fuerza.
they have come back with so much strength.
En la última década, China ha crecido 10 veces más que Estados Unidos.
In the last decade, China has grown 10 times more than the United States,
20 veces más que Japón.
20 times more than Japan.
Y hay quien dice
And there are those who say
que en 15 años China será la primera potencia económica del mundo.
that in 15 years, China will be the #1 power on earth.
Permítame que diga que no es fácil que Estados Unidos se deje ganar este liderazgo.
Allow me to say it is not easy for the United States to lose this battle of leadership.
En todo caso, será una competición interesante.
But besides the fact, it will be a very interesting competition.
Y sin duda, para que el mundo siga ganando en espacios
And without a doubt, for this to keep on winning in territory and in space,
de desarrollo, de crecimiento,
of development and of growth,
de equilibrio de la riqueza,
and of equality or distribution of wealth,
de reducción de la pobreza,
and the reduction of poverty,
tenemos que seguir apostando por una globalización económica,
we have to keep on betting on the international globalization,
por seguir abriendo los mercados
to keep on opening up the different
y no
markets
cerrarlos,
and not close in,
por seguir fomentando que la inversión vaya donde hay posibilidades de desarrollo y de crecimiento,
to keep on encouraging that investments go where there is greater possibility,
como México.
like Mexico.
México es el próximo.
Mexico is the next.
México es el próximo país de moda.
Mexico is the next country in line that is in style.
Sí, sí. En estos momentos está ya prácticamente como el país de moda de los grandes países emergentes.
It is actually and presently one of the top nations who are in style.
Tiene un gran potencial
They have such great potential.
y va a estar codo con Brasil,
And they will be
disputándose el liderazgo en Latinoamérica.
elbow to elbow with Brazil, kind of fighting over this leadership in Latin America.
Y eso es muy bueno para el mundo, que países como México tengan por delante un horizonte de crecimiento, crecimiento y crecimiento.
And this is so good in Latin America that countries can have this encouragement for growth and more growth and more growth every day.
Ahora bien, tenemos que ser conscientes que este desarrollo global de la economía, esta ruptura de las fronteras, exige que haya un cierto orden internacional.
Now, we do have to be very conscious that in this globalization and global order, that there does have to be some sort of structure.
Ustedes lo notan menos porque son la gran potencia,
You guys all know this because you are the great power.
pero los países medianos sabemos que la economía hoy está internacionalizada completamente.
But the countries that are not the powers, we understand this principle that it really hasn't globalized fully.
Por tanto, hay que hacer más cooperación.
So there has to be so much more cooperation.
Tenemos el G20 en marcha.
We have G20, which is on its way.
Hay que darle más fuerza, más contenido.
We have to give it even more strength.
Fue Estados Unidos, en Pittsburgh,
So in the United States, in Pittsburgh,
con el presidente Obama, quien institucionalizó el G20,
with President Obama, who instituted G20,
por primera vez en la historia,
for the first time in the history,
el 80% de la riqueza mundial se sienta en una mesa,
80% of the world's wealth sit down at a table
dialoga y llega a acuerdos sobre sistema monetario,
and to reach agreements on the monetary systems,
sobre el comercio, sobre el
with
cambio climático.
commerce, with climate changes.
Y yo les diré, no tenemos otro horizonte si queremos orden, desarrollo, equilibrio y progreso que fortalecer el G20.
So I would say to you today that I would not see another option to strengthen growth and economy than through G20, which is
Es el
established.
compromiso de Europa.
This is the commitment of Europe.
Saben que Europa atraviesa una situación difícil.
You know that Europe is going through a very difficult situation.
Hay dudas
There are doubts
y preocupación,
and there are many worries,
porque si la economía europea se estanca,
because if the European economy
puede poner en riesgo el crecimiento mundial que parece se va a consolidar este año y el que viene.
if this is stagnant or it stops or comes to a break, it would obviously affect the international and the nations around.
He estado 8 años sentado con los líderes europeos
So for 8 years, I've been with this European Union.
y he vivido en primera línea una crisis económica muy dura.
And I could see and I experienced a very difficult crisis.
Pero les quiero dejar 2 ideas.
But I want to leave with you today 2 ideas.
La primera, el proyecto europeo no tiene marcha atrás.
The first one is that this project has no return.
Lo que veremos es cada vez una Europa más unida,
Every day we will see a Europe which is more unified,
con un gobierno económico más fuerte,
with a government which is stronger by the day,
con una unión fiscal, unión bancaria
with a union of the banks and the fiscal union stronger,
y por supuesto con un banco central europeo cada vez más activo.
and of course a central bank which is more active.
¿Deberíamos haber hecho esa unión más rápida
We should have done this union so much quicker
para haber combatido la crisis mejor?
to be able to maybe combat against this crisis a little bit better.
Es cierto,
It's true,
pero somos 27 países,
but we are 27 nations,
27 banderas,
27 different flags,
25 idiomas,
25 languages,
y los avances de unidad cuestan,
and the advances of unity, they cost so much.
pero no tengan duda que la voluntad es de defender el euro,
But do not have a doubt in your mind that the unity is to defend the euro,
aunque los mercados cada 6 meses dicen se puede romper el euro.
even though the markets say every 6 months that you can stop the euro.
Llevamos así 3 años
So we've been like this for 3 years,
y han visto que no se ha roto el euro,
And
que
we've
ningún
seen
país ha salido de la zona euro.
that we cannot bring to an end the euro, and that not even one nation has left the union.
Y mi convicción es que eso va a ser así.
And my conviction is that this will continue this way.
Necesitamos hacer reformas y ajustes para ganar competitividad,
We need to do reformations and adjustments to be able to reach competitivity.
en un mundo cada vez más competitivo por la llegada de los países emergentes,
And with a world that is so competitive with the emerging nations,
y lo vamos a hacer.
and
Lo
we will
estamos
do
haciendo.
this, and we are doing this.
Los mercados en ocasiones han mirado con excesiva desconfianza a algunos países como España.
Markets, so many times they have looked with so much distrust nations like Spain,
Pasaron de mirarnos con una total confianza y acudir con grandes volúmenes de inversión a vernos con preocupación.
At one time, they looked at us with so much trust and with such high percentages and numbers of investments to going to the total other extreme of having very little or if any at all.
Pero yo les quiero, ya para terminar, dar algún dato
But I would like to just leave with you one fact,
sobre España, sobre mi país,
and it's about Spain, about my country,
para que fortalezcan toda la confianza en el futuro de España.
that you can establish all of your confidence in the future with Spain.
Somos el único de los grandes países europeos
We are the only out of all of the great European nations
que ha mantenido la cuota de comercio en el mundo del 2%.
that has been able to
En los
maintain
últimos 15
the
años.
quote in commerce at 2% for the last 15 years.
Porque la emergencia de China y otros países ha hecho que todos los occidentales hayamos perdido peso.
Because with
Pero España
emerging
no.
China, it has been able to put that all of the other are being less, but this hasn't happened with Spain.
Tenemos grandes compañías,
We have a lot of great companies,
las mejores compañías en energías renovables,
and the greatest companies in renewable energy,
las mejores compañías en construcción de infraestructuras,
the greatest companies in construction,
las mejores compañías en el sector financiero.
the greatest companies in the financial sector.
El Banco Santander, quizá el mejor banco europeo por capitalización y eficiencia.
Bank of Santander, which is the best bank of capital.
BBVA,
BVA,
que está aquí, por
which
cierto.
is here, of course.
Tenemos las empresas que mejor gestionan el agua del mundo.
We have the companies that best deliver water in the world.
Somos el país con más potencia de desalinización del mundo.
And we are the country.
Sí, es difícil.
Desalinization
Eso es.
in the whole world. So sorry.
Y tenemos además la industria agroalimentaria más poderosa de
And
todos los países europeos.
we have, beside this, the industry of food, which is one of the greatest out of all of the countries.
Por supuesto, tenemos los mejores cocineros del mundo.
And of course, you all know that we have the best chefs in all the world.
Triunfan en Nueva York y en todos los sitios.
And you guys know this in New York and in all other places.
Somos la segunda potencia mundial en turismo,
We are the second leading power in tourism,
porque somos un país muy, muy bello para conocer
because we are a nation that is very, very beautiful to get to know
y para admirar por su historia y su cultura.
and to admire because of its culture and because of its history.
Aquí en Texas he conocido personas que admiran la cultura española,
Here in Texas, I've been able to see that people admire the culture of Spain,
sus pintores,
especially the artists and the painters.
Mañana voy a ir a ver una colección de pintura española que hay aquí.
Tomorrow, I have the opportunity to go see a collection of art and of paintings from Spain that is here in Dallas.
Y les agradezco de corazón que valoren el arte y la cultura española.
And I appreciate from the bottom of my heart that you honor and appreciate the art and the painting of our nation in Spain.
Es la mejor manera de unir a los pueblos
It is the greatest way to unite the towns
y de hacer crecer nuestro pensamiento,
and to be able to grow our way of thinking,
más que el comercio,
more even than commerce,
la cultura.
our culture.
Y desde la cultura,
And from our culture,
yo les invito a que vayan a España.
I would like to invite
A
you
los
all
que
to
no
come by
conozcan
Spain.
España.
Those of you who don't know Spain,
Y que sepan que allí nació una lengua
and that you would understand that there in Spain was birthed a language
que hablamos 500 millones,
that we speak 500 million of us,
que es la lengua que más crece en
which
el mundo
is
en estos
the
momentos.
language that has most or greatest percentages of growth.
La
in the
segunda
world.
más hablada.
The second language
del
that is
mundo.
most spoken in the
La
whole
mayoría de
world.
los países quieren tener su segunda lengua que sea el
And
español.
most countries want to have their second language be Spanish.
Y hay una forma
And there is a way
de ser de lo hispano en el mundo,
to be Spanish in the world,
una identidad común,
which is a common identity,
una identidad que supone estar abierto a los demás.
an identity which seems to be open to the rest of the people.
España fue un país que nació de la influencia de muchas culturas.
Spain was a nation that was birthed out of maybe the influence of many different cultures.
Cultura íbera, cultura celta,
There was the Celtic culture,
cultura árabe.
the Arab culture,
Y desde esa gran confluencia de culturas,
and from this great combination of cultures,
que un gran escritor mexicano como Carlos Fuentes nos ha explicado como nadie,
there was a great Mexican author by the name of Carlos Fuentes, which he explains it the best.
llegamos a América
We came to America,
y nos hicimos también americanos.
and we also became American.
Esa es la grandeza de la relación y de la comunicación
And
entre
that
los
is
pueblos.
the greatness of relationship and the greatness of communication between the different towns and cities.
Por ello estoy tan contento de estar aquí en Texas.
This is why I am so content, joyful to be here in Texas.
Esta mañana termino ya. He estado, como se ha dicho, en la universidad cristiana de Texas.
Just as we were speaking this morning at the Christian University,
Y Juan decía que los alumnos estaban con ganas, que se les veía con la vitalidad de los años, ¿no?
and Juan would say that the students, they had that vitality of the years and that desire.
Yo les dije que cualquiera de ellos podían ser presidentes de los Estados Unidos.
And I said to them that any of them that were in the auditorium could become the president of the United States.
Que la democracia era verdad, era real, ¿no?
And it was very real
Que yo lo había vivido
because I had lived it,
y que era real y que creyeran en la democracia,
and that this was real, that we should believe in the power of democracy
en sus posibilidades,
and in these possibilities that it offers.
en la capacidad de luchar, de resistir, de levantarse una vez más.
The capacity to fight and to rise up once again.
Pero ya veo que ese espíritu de lucha no es una cuestión de ser universitario, no, es una cuestión de ser tejano. Yo les veo a ustedes.
So I want to let you know that this characteristic of being a fighter does not come from being a university student, it comes from being Texan.
Juan, les he visto a ustedes y se lo quiero agradecer de corazón, con la misma atención, con las mismas ganas y con la misma fuerza que esos jóvenes universitarios. Quizá es porque ustedes en el fondo sean tan o más jóvenes que los universitarios de la Universidad Cristiana.
I want to say this just as I said to them, I want to say it to you, that you can have this same vitality and this same passion of accomplishing great things. And of course, because many of you are just as young, at least in your hearts, than many of these students were this morning that we were able to speak to.
Enhorabuena por las universidades que tienen, enhorabuena, cuídenlas. Es la mayor riqueza que pueden tener.
I want you to take care of your university and university students. It's the greatest resource that you can have.
Y a los que no conozcan, les espero en España. Merece la pena, de verdad.
And those of you that I haven't been able to meet, I will wait for you in Spain. It is well worth the trip over.
Okay. Muy bien.
We are going to start the question and answer session. President Fox, is that correct?
Sí, señor.
Okay, very good. Back there.
Thank you for joining us this evening. A number of years ago, Margaret Thatcher, at one end of the political spectrum, stated that socialism is the greatest opportunity until you run out of the other person's money. Cuba, at the other end of the spectrum, recently Raúl Castro commented that socialism is not working in Cuba. Would you like to comment on these two comments by these world leaders?
Sí. Sí. Me gustaría porque no comparto ninguna de las dos ideas.
I would like to comment because I do not participate or support either of those two
Ni la de Margaret
commentaries.
Thatcher,
Neither of Margaret Thatcher,
ni por supuesto la de Raúl Castro.
and of course not of Raúl
Menos
Castro.
todavía.
Even less yet.
Y Europa
Europe.
es el continente
Europe is the continent
que ha logrado mayor crecimiento económico
that has accomplished the greatest economic growth
y mayor bienestar social,
and the greatest, social being,
con una economía de mercado.
with an economy of the market.
También Gran Bretaña,
And also Great Britain,
aunque los británicos son algo especiales en Europa.
even though the British are a very special group of people in Europe.
Fueron un imperio.
They were an entire empire.
Ustedes les quitaron el sitio.
So you guys took their place.
Pero como fueron un imperio todavía eso lo sienten y por eso quieren tener una cierta distancia con
So
nosotros.
even though they were an empire at once, they still feel it, and so they still would like to keep their distance in
Pero en
some
Gran
way.
Bretaña con gobiernos socialdemócratas
But in Great Britain, with these democrats,
la economía ha crecido más que con Margaret Thatcher
the economy has grown more than with Margaret Thatcher,
y la educación, la sanidad,
and the education, the healing,
los servicios públicos
the public services
se han mantenido.
have been able to be maintained.
Eso es lo que hemos demostrado en Europa,
So this is what we've been able to demonstrate in Europe,
que es posible una economía abierta,
that it is possible to have an open economy,
libertad económica,
liberty in finances,
iniciativa privada,
private initiative,
mercado único,
a very unique market,
impuestos
taxes,
y derechos sociales, claro.
and obviously different social rights.
Yo lo explicaba esta mañana y lo debo de reiterar.
So I explained this morning, and I would like to repeat myself.
Merece la pena vivir en una sociedad que garantiza la sanidad universal y gratuita a todos los ciudadanos.
It is well worth fighting for the universal unity.
En mi país, una persona de 90 años
For my person, a person of 90 years of age,
que tiene una fractura de cadera,
that has a dislocation in the hip or a fracture,
se le hace un implante por el Estado, por el servicio público,
can have an implant from the state, from the public service,
aunque sea un coste de $12,000 o $14,000.
even though there might be a cost of $12,000 or $14,000.
Para nosotros eso es vivir en un país.
For us, that is to live in a country.
Todos hacemos por todos
We all do for the all,
y repartimos la riqueza
and we all share the wealth
para garantizar sanidad, educación, pensiones y desempleo.
to be able to guarantee the healing, the wealth, the health, and pensions.
Y eso no tiene nada que ver con lo que la señora Thatcher tenía en la cabeza del
So this
socialismo.
has nothing to do with what Mrs. Thatcher had in mind to do,
Y aún menos con lo que tiene el señor Fidel Castro, claro.
and even less with what Fidel Castro has.
No, Europa es un continente socialdemócrata.
Europe is a country, a continent of
Social Democrats.
social democrat
O demócrata social.
or democratic socialist,
Y es posible.
and it is possible.
Bueno, sí, hay impuestos.
Yes, there are taxes
En Suecia, Noruega,
in Sweden, in Norway.
se paga un 50% de impuestos, la economía del total del Producto Interior Bruto, 50%,
They pay up to 50%,
Alemania un 40%,
maybe Germany 40%,
España un 36%,
Spain 36%.
y con eso hacemos que haya un estado del bienestar.
So with this, we ensure that there is a well-being in the state.
Es nuestra manera de vivir,
This is our way of living.
es el sueño europeo.
This is the dream of the European Union.
Y es un sueño que merece la pena.
And it is a dream that is well worth living for.
Saber que ningún ciudadano se va a quedar sin pensión
To know that not one citizen will be left without pension
cuando no pueda trabajar.
when they cannot work.
Saber que un ciudadano, aunque tenga el peor cáncer y el más costoso, va a tener la atención médica de su país.
To know that any citizen that even has cancer or the worst of the infirmities will have the support and the financial support from the
Saber
government.
que ningún niño,
To
ningún
know
joven
that not one child
dejará de poder tener su educación,
will be left without education,
aunque sea muy pobre.
even though it is very probable.
Ahora, es verdad,
Now, this is true.
usted lo ha dicho,
You
Parte.
have said it.
que ese gasto solo es posible si la economía es competitiva,
That this cost is only possible if the economy is competitive.
porque si no, no hay ingresos
Because if not, then there is
para
no income
atender esos gastos.
to be able to attend all of these costs.
Y ahora Europa tiene que abrir una nueva etapa
And now Europe has to open a new scene or a
para
new
ser
stage
competitiva,
to begin to be competitive
de innovación y de talento.
in innovation and in talent.
Y tenemos que hacer más esfuerzos.
And we have to do so much more efforts.
Llevamos 3 décadas de tranquilidad, de bienestar.
We have gone through about 3 decades of tranquility and of well-being,
Pero mi pronóstico es que ese modelo de
but my diagnostic is that this model
democracia social
of being democratic socialists,
no socialista, no.
Social
sorry,
democracy.
social democracy.
Eso.
So sorry.
Sí. Yo veo que le ha gustado mucho más a nuestro...
I think you like that answer a lot better.
No, yo puedo decir, yo en mi etapa, yo soy un socialdemócrata, pero le puedo decir que en mi etapa de presidente de gobierno bajé los impuestos.
Now, I am a social democratic, and I can see that when I was president, I brought the taxes lower.
Sí. Porque no creo que los impuestos sean algo dogmático.
Because I don't believe that taxes should be something that is dogmatic.
Son un instrumento,
They are a tool, an instrument.
no son el fin.
They're not the final say.
Y los impuestos tienen que ser razonables para que no dañes la economía.
And taxes obviously need to be reasonable to not destroy the economy,
Sobre todo el impuesto sobre sociedades y el impuesto sobre la renta.
especially over the taxes upon society.
Yo bajé 5 puntos el impuesto de sociedades.
I brought and I lowered the taxes on society down to 5%, down 5%,
Y bajé 5 puntos el impuesto de la renta a las personas físicas.
and I lowered of the physical people down another 5 points.
Lo digo porque a veces las cosas que se cuentan son leyendas urbanas.
I say this because lots of times the things that are said are human legends.
Y me costó una afirmación de decir que bajar impuestos también era de izquierdas.
And it did cost me, the critics of saying that this is something of the left.
Bueno, eso es hacer Europa, es nuestro modelo, creo que se extenderá ojalá se extienda por Latinoamérica.
So this is our model in Europe, and hopefully this will
Que tienen que
extend
reducir
itself through Latin
desigualdades.
America.
Y ojalá que este es un gran país que también Estados Unidos consolide esa idea.
And hopefully the United States, of being such a great nation, can be able to consolidate this great idea.
Tiene que haber un equilibrio para la cohesión
There has to be an equilibrium in the equation
entre la economía libre, el mercado, que es imbatible,
between the market, the free market,
y la cohesión social,
and the social problem or the social equation,
para que un país se sienta a sí mismo orgulloso.
so that any country can feel within itself very prideful.
Gracias por su pregunta.
Thank you.
Otra pregunta. Another question, please.
Juan,
Sí, señor.
let me add a comment
Señor
here.
Presidente,
Let me add
claro.
a comment here because this is a
your
very
dinner.
important issue. This is what we're talking about. Going through the East, the successful East in growth, in distribution of income, like it happened in Japan, like it's happening in China, like Indians are beginning to see happening. The new culture is that ideologies, in a way, are part of the past. That today governments have to be very pragmatic because that's the interest of the citizen. Citizens want education, want access to a health service of quality of excellence. Of course, they want access to a job and to income. So the best governments today, at least on the ranking they do in Asia, is those who attend citizens' needs and not eternal discussions about ideologies. I think this is what is coming and is mighty important. Sometimes democracies in presidential system seem to be in permanent conflict, like we see here between Democrats and Republicans. And at the very end, you don't reach the decisions that the nation needs. We don't reach the cohesiveness and the consensus. In the meantime, we just dedicate to conflict, to opposition. And this is the problem in Mexico, that today, with the new president, it seems to be that we're going to be overcoming the problem of divided by parties, partisan divide between the Congress and the executive branch. And in many ways, the parliamentarian system, which Spain enjoys and most of European nations, forces you to reach consensus on the name of the nation and to respond people on their needs. I think that there's a lot of things that we are going to be discussing around effective governance, discussing about delivery to what really citizens are claiming.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Good evening, gentlemen. My question for the evening is, With the recent problems in Italy, are you afraid of what is going on will affect the euro? And in your view, do you see it being more problematic for Spain's economy?
Sí, las elecciones en Italia han tenido un resultado que va a ser complicado de gestionar.
The results of the election in Italy will be complicated to solve.
Pero le recuerdo que es Italia.
But I want to remind you that it is Italy.
Italia tiene una larga tradición de ingobernabilidad.
Has a long history of not having government.
Es el país europeo que más gobiernos ha tenido en la historia.
It is a nation in Europe that has had most governments in the history.
Hubo tiempos que cambiaba de gobierno cada mes.
There were times where Italy changed governments almost every month.
Y son italianos.
And they are Italian.
Son geniales.
They are geniuses.
Son innovadores.
They are innovative.
Son buenos comerciantes.
They are great salespeople.
Pero la cosa esta de gobernar un país es otra cosa.
But now to govern a nation, a country, is obviously something else.
Debo ser claro con Europa, ¿no?
I must be very clear with Europe.
Europa depende del liderazgo alemán.
Europe depends upon the German leadership.
Ustedes observen las señales de Alemania.
You can see all the different signs in Germany.
No tengo ninguna duda que Alemania no va a dejar que el proyecto histórico
I have no doubt in my mind that the historic project
de Unión Europea y de zona euro se ponga en cuestión.
Of the European Union
tiene fuerza suficiente para ello.
Not to be questioned.
Does have the strength to continue.
That they would have the strength to continue.
Lo que sucede es que va a ir paso a paso.
What will happen is that it will be a process that becomes step by step.
Si me permite, va a intentar que todos los países lleven el ritmo alemán.
So if you allow me, I believe that they will try to make it so that everyone comes to the rhythm that Germany is running.
Muy disciplinados.
Very disciplined.
Pero bien, y eso no es fácil porque el norte y el sur en Europa existen como en Estados Unidos.
But this is not easy because the north and south in Europe exist just as it does in the United States.
Pero no tengo ninguna duda de que no hay un proyecto alemán de país, sino es un proyecto con una Europa unida y un euro, por supuesto igual que Francia.
But I do believe that they do have a project of unifying Europe just as does France.
Llevamos 3 años sufriendo.
We have suffered for the last 3 years.
Especialmente por el desempleo juvenil.
Especially for the unemployment in youth.
Quizá tengamos todavía 2-3 años difíciles.
¿De qué?
Tengamos 2-3 años difíciles por delante.
We might have 2 or 3 years that are very difficult ahead of us.
Pero las economías van a quedar muy saneadas.
But the economies will end up very strengthened.
Por ejemplo, España.
For example, in Spain,
ha ganado competitividad en los últimos 3-4 años.
It has become competitive last 3 or 4 years.
Fuerte ajuste de los costes salariales.
It was cutting the salaries.
Y por tanto estamos hoy en condiciones de competir con mucha más capacidad.
So now we are in a position to be able to compete with a lot more capacity.
Bueno, es interesante Italia.
So it's interesting regarding Italy.
Pero la clave está un poco más al norte. La clave está un poco más al norte.
So the key is just a little bit more north.
Y mientras vean al norte tranquilo, estén tranquilos.
As you see that the north has peace, then you be peaceful as well.
Y Alemania tiene elecciones en septiembre.
And Germany has their elections in September.
Ahí sí hay que estar atentos.
So there is where we really have to pay a lot of our attention.
Comment here. Let me talk about this discipline effect of Germany. Here we have a table with GM, General Motors, good friends that have this state-of-the-art plant in the state of Guanajuato, where the production line brings in discipline to the whole of the human resource. And everything moves at the rhythm of that production line. And here we have UST Global, a corporation that is dedicated to IT services and solutions, information technologies. They decided to build their corporate headquarters for Latin America by the side of Central Park. So this has given me the opportunity to learn that IT in the corporations of today's 21st century align all their efforts, resources, ideas, capacities, productivity through this magnificent tool of information technologies. It's like the production line in General Motors that moves the whole of the institution in one direction. And this is, again, what I was saying before. Instead of discussing ideologies, moving left, moving right, the best way to go is straight ahead. Gracias.
Another question? Yes. Yes, please. Another question?
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you. I have friends that live around the world that are Spanish citizens that have said they don't want to go back to Spain because they do not have opportunity there. And the question, one particular question, is about real estate in Spain. And that is that in this country, if a person owns a home and it gets, the value is less than what you owe, you can walk away. But in Spain, this is not the case. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity, if there's a thought that in Spain, that maybe the people will be able to relieve themselves of homes so that they can refresh. In other words, go through bankruptcy.
Muy bien. Ha ido al tema central de nuestro país, de la economía de nuestro país.
You have actually hit the very center of our economy in our country.
España ha tenido la típica burbuja inmobiliaria.
We have had the typical
Bubble.
bubble. Typical bubble.
Voy a dar algún dato
And I'm going to give you a few facts
para que se comprenda.
so that you can understand this.
Cuando se pone en marcha el euro,
When you begin to put in action the euro,
los tipos de interés en España bajan 10 puntos.
the types of interest in Europe, they go down 10 points. In Spain, sorry. They go down 10 points.
El dinero prácticamente no cuesta, hay interés negativo.
Money basically doesn't exist at, doesn't cost at negative interest.
Bien. Hay una gran entrada de capitales en España.
There is a great entry of capital in Spain.
El euro, una moneda segura,
Euro, which is a very stable currency.
un país creciendo.
It is a country that is growing.
Bueno, los mercados van a España.
So the markets, they go to Spain
Los fondos de pensiones alemanes,
with the pension funds, which are from Germany,
bancos holandeses,
the banks that are from Holland,
compañías de seguros francesas.
and security insurance companies which are French.
Bien. Hay una llamada al crédito.
So there is a call to our attention of credit.
Los bancos obtienen dinero muy fácil.
Banks, they retain the money so easily,
Los bancos prestan el dinero muy fácil a los ciudadanos.
and banks, they loan the money so easily and freely to people.
Y ese momento
And so that moment,
coincide
it coincides
con la generación más grande de la historia de España,
with the generation, with the greatest generation in Spain,
que llega al momento de buscar una vivienda.
that comes to the point of wanting to look to be able to live
Con la
or
entrada
property,
de 5 millones de inmigrantes en 10 años en España,
with 5 million immigrants in Spain,
y por tanto una gran demanda de vivienda.
and also there is such a great demand on houses.
Dinero fácil, barato,
Easy money or cheap money.
gran demanda de vivienda.
There is a big demand on housing.
Bueno, precios suben constantemente.
So the prices, they constantly are rising.
A lo que se une que casi todos los europeos quieren tener una vivienda en España, en la costa.
To the point where every Spanish person wants to have a property on the coast of Spain. Every European wants to have a property on the coast of Spain.
Como es natural.
Of course.
Entonces, cuando el país estaba en el momento álgido de esa presión
So
de
in
demanda
a
por la
moment
vivienda,
when the country is at its highest level of this demanding of property,
llega la crisis financiera,
this is where the financial crisis arrives,
credit crunch completo, y se corta el crédito.
and all credit is cut off.
Bien. En España tenemos un sistema hipotecario
In Europe, we have a system. In Spain, we have a mortgage system
que ha funcionado muy bien.
which has worked very well.
La prueba es que hay un 85% de las familias que tienen vivienda en propiedad.
Challenge is that we have 85% of families that are wanting property.
Eso. Y el 50% de las familias tienen una segunda vivienda.
And 50% of families, they have a second property.
Es el país de Europa y de los países del mundo que más viviendas en propiedad tienen las familias.
So it's in Europe, the nation that has the greatest number of properties in all of Europe.
Bien. La morosidad de hipotecas está en el 3% solamente.
So with the mortgages, it is at 3%. The late payments of mortgages is at 3%.
Creo que en Estados Unidos está en el 9%.
I believe in the United States it's at
Después
9.
de 4 años de crisis dura,
After 4 years of very hard, difficult crisis,
por tanto es un modelo que ha funcionado.
so this is a model that has worked.
Claro, la riqueza financiera de las familias
Of course, the wealth of the families,
ha bajado,
the financial wealth has as well,
porque ha bajado
Lowered.
el precio de la vivienda.
because as well the price of houses has also lowered.
Pero antes había subido muchísimo.
But before this, it had incremented and been raised to a very high
Por
number.
tanto, la relación de la riqueza financiera de las familias
So the relationship with the finances of families,
con su deuda
with their debt,
no ha descendido demasiado.
it really hasn't lowered too much.
¿Cuál es la cuestión que se plantea? Y ahora voy a
What is the
al punto
question?
central de la pregunta.
And this is where I want to come back to the question.
Claro, hay familias
There are families
que han perdido su vivienda
who have lost their property
porque no han podido pagarla.
because they haven't been able to pay it.
Y en nuestro país, no
And
solo el deudor
In
tiene
our
que
country,
responder con la vivienda,
not only the debtor needs to respond,
sino que además tiene que pagar la deuda comprometida.
but they also have to pay for the committed debt.
La vivienda ha bajado de valor,
So the property has lowered in value,
entonces no paga con eso todo lo que debe al banco.
so he doesn't pay with that everything that he owes to the bank.
Bien. Ahora hay una ley en el Parlamento
So now there is a law in Parliament
que se está debatiendo la dación en pago.
that they are talking about unemployment,
They're debating it. It's a law that's being debated.
a law that is being debated.
Es decir, la posibilidad de
It is
que
to
si
say that the possibility
una persona no deja de pagar la vivienda,
a person that is no longer paying their place of living
no tenga que mantener la deuda si devuelve la vivienda, valga lo que valga la vivienda en ese momento.
They don't have to pay again the debt if they deliver again the place that they're living in.
Bien, pero la cuestión no es fácil.
But it is not an easy situation.
¿Por qué?
Why?
Porque si a los bancos les dices,
Because if to the banks you tell them,
usted va a perder dinero,
you're going to lose money,
y resulta que hay 600.000 millones de euros
and it results that there are 6 billion euros
en cédulas hipotecarias de los bancos
in
españoles,
mortgages in the banks,
que es el respaldo de esos bancos,
which is the backing and the support, the commitment of these banks.
y esas cédulas hipotecarias
If these mortgages,
pierden valor,
they lose value,
podría ser un serio riesgo
it could be a very serious risk.
para los bancos.
For the
Pensando en el
banks.
futuro, pensando en el futuro.
Thinking in the future.
Claro, si se cambia el modelo
Of course, if you change the model
y la dación en pago se adoptara,
and the way of payment could be adjusted,
los bancos exigirían condiciones mucho más duras, más difíciles para dar hipotecas.
the banks would make it so much more difficult to give mortgages.
Y la gente, desde luego en mi país, ha comprado su vivienda con hipoteca.
And the people in my country, they have bought their properties through mortgages.
¿Qué es lo razonable, lo que se está debatiendo en el Parlamento ahora?
What is reasonable and what is being discussed in Parliament right now?
Es lo que pasa en Francia, en Alemania.
What happens in France, in Germany,
Bien, si una familia no puede pagar la vivienda,
if a family cannot pay for their property,
tiene que haber una segunda oportunidad.
there has to be a second opportunity.
Una segunda oportunidad.
A second opportunity.
Tiene que haber un arbitraje,
There has to be another chance.
un hombre bueno.
An arbiter.
An arbitrary
Eso es. Entre el banco y la familia.
between the bank and the family,
Bien para que alargue los plazos
so that he can extend
o
the
para que haga una
possibilities
moratoria por 2 años
to do something for 2 years,
o que el banco se quede con la vivienda y se lo alquile a la familia.
or that the government stays with the property and they begin to rent it to the owner.
Bueno, esto es lo que ahora se está discutiendo en el Parlamento.
So this is what is being discussed in Parliament.
Pero le diré, quédese con ese dato.
So I want to leave you just with this fact.
85% de las familias en España vivienda en propiedad.
85% of families in Spain
Vivienda en propiedad.
have their own property.
Por tanto, sí, también sé que los americanos tienen esa, en fin, esa tendencia a tener la vivienda en propiedad.
And I do know that most Americans have this same tendency of wanting to have their own property.
Y usted entenderá
And you will understand
que los españoles hayan querido invertir en vivienda,
the Spanish have wanted to invest in property
porque es el único país de Europa
because it's the only country in Europe
que en los 30 años anteriores a la crisis
that in 30 years before in crisis,
fue más rentable
it was more rentable,
invertir en vivienda
possible to invest in property
que en renta variable
than
o en renta
in
fija.
in
Que en los
in
mercados de
equities.
Y eso explica, es una cosa singular de España,
And this explains, this is something very unique, singular about Spain.
explica que la burbuja tuviera tanta fuerza, la burbuja inmobiliaria.
And it explains that this bubble had so much strength.
Pero el problema de los españoles que ahora están yendo a trabajar fuera es el empleo.
Now the problem is that a lot of Spanish people that are going to work outside of this employment.
Que teníamos en la construcción 3 millones de empleos.
We had in this construction, we had in construction we had over 3 million jobs.
3 millones de empleos.
3 million
Y
jobs.
se han perdido 2 millones.
And we have lost 2 million of these.
Y la construcción es el sector más intensivo
And the
en
construction
trabajadores.
is the sector of most intensity.
Y ahora tenemos que recuperar con otros sectores.
Now we have to begin to
Trabajo.
recuperate through other sectors' jobs.
I see President Fox there raising a hand and wanting also to make a comment. Presidente Fox?
Final comment, because
Yes,
we're
yes,
running
sir.
out of time. I was just going to again show my gratitude and my honor of having received here my friend Jose Luis, that we worked together for years in trying to bring better quality of life to our citizens. And what I learned today is that he has a law degree that he attained in a university, but he has a PhD on finance that he acquired on the arena in handling this kind of problems and coming along with answers when crises come. And as I said before, not only Europe will return, but also Spain will come back very strong, will come back to its leading position worldwide. And I'm sure that we in Latin America at least, and we in Mexico, will highly benefit from a successful, strong, growing Spain. So muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Has this not been a very, very interesting night? Thank you very much, President Zapatero. Really, our heart goes to you. And I'd like to give our translator a hand, please. This was...